White ants are bad news. When the first fleeters unloaded their stores on the shore of Sydney Harbour, the white ants were waiting and couldn't believe their good fortune. For millions of years they'd been eating fallen logs and the branches of eucalypts and other native hardwood trees, and you can imagine the white ant bush telegraph spreading the good news. That suddenly there were pine crates, pine planks and oak barrels, all softer and tastier and placed conveniently on the ground. Being sneaky, the white ants didn't let on that they were loving this new soft timber, and, as usual, they ate out the crates and barrels without any visible signs to passers-by. There are no termites in Mother England, but there are ants. These look like white ants, a name which is stuck, even if termites is preferred by those who wish to be seen as educated, or at least more precise. White ants come in many shapes and have differing habits. There are over 300 species in Australia, but only a few do significant damage to seasoned wood used to construct buildings. The subterranean termites base themselves in soil, with access to a constant source of moisture, which they absolutely need, because of their thin outer shells. The major pest termites hide their nests underground or inside hollow trees and prefer to eat solid seasoned timber. Some mound building species also eat solid timber, but because the mounds are very visible, we just physically destroy the mounds so these white ants don't get to inflict expensive damage. Many of the mound builders, including those giant north-south or so-called magnetic mounds, are the homes of termites which eat grass and leaf litter. Termites from the big brown and black nests seen way up in the branches of trees are seldom found eating solid wood unless it's decaying, which means it's not really solid. Grass and leaf litter eaters have it easy. They often build mud tunnels over the soil surface to a grass tussock and bring it back to their mound nest. They often scout ahead, walking along the ground, before they build their tunnel along a pheromone trail left by returning scouts. It's generally believed that important subterranean species send their scouts out tunnelling beneath the soil surface until they bump into something worth eating. On the scout's return, a committee meeting is convened and a decision is made whether the find is big enough to mount a construction team to build the underground tunnel to the newfound food source. This scenario makes sense when they find and attack timber such as dead trees, or now in civilized times, fence or other fence posts. Laboratory trials have proven this underground search methodology. But they also scout above the ground, right out in the open, just like their grass-eating cousins. How else would white ants find timber in wooden floors, suspended on concrete or brick piers? As a starting point, the eggs laid by the queen are gathered by workers and stacked loosely in open cavities next to the royal chambers. When they hatch as white nymphs, they're moved a little farther away from the queen, to other cavities where food is brought to them from the outer reaches of the colony. It's brought by workers who regurgitate it for their sustenance. As the nymphs get larger through a series of molts, they move further and further out, and may even be found in food-gathering sites close to the nest. In their last molts, they become either workers or soldiers. Workers are accurately named. They do everything: food gathering, nest building, maintenance, feeding everyone, the royals, nymphs and soldiers. Soldiers just swan around, hoping not to get a call to action. But when a tunnel or a working gallery is breached, they rush out to guard the opening until the workers can repair it. If homeowners discover white ants in their homes, the usual and wrong response is to rip it all apart to see how extensive is the damage. There's no hope for the termites repairing such wholesale destruction, so they set their defence line at a narrow area of the gallery closer to the nest. Those soldiers and workers cut off beyond the pass are sacrificed and die of dehydration or in hand-to-hand combat with ants or from household sprays. But the colony survives and lives to suss out a new way around to keep on feeding. After the nest is established, about 2 to 5 years, young reproductive nymphs begin to appear. They have longer abdomens to contain the reproductive organs, and you can see wings and eyes beginning to develop. Neither workers or soldiers have eyes, which makes above-ground foraging exploits even more impressive. Timing is everything. In early summer, the workers open a slot cut in the highest areas of their feeding galleries. The soldiers guard the slot, then one warm, humid evening, when the outside conditions closely match the inside temperature and humidity, maybe just after a storm or rain when it's not windy and it's dusk, 10,000 teenage reproductives jump out into their unknown destinies. Being dark, most birds have gone for the day, most ants and lizards likewise. Not being strong on their wings, they flutter to stay airborne, drifting on air currents there may be, until they reach the ground level. Boys find and follow girls and begin to search for a suitable place to build a nest. Usually it's a piece of wood in or on the ground. The critical requirement is a combination of food and moisture. Not one or the other, but both. Then they lever off their equal-sized wings because, after all, they're not strong enough to lift off again. They then begin to excavate a pocket in the damp soil up against the wood they've found, so that by morning, when the first ants and birds are looking to find the early worms, they do not wish to in any way to qualify. Of the thousands that flew the colonizing flight, most won't find a suitable site. The ants get them, or they desiccate and die. Food but no moisture is fatal. The lucky ones find the elusive combination and survive long enough to raise their first brood of eggs. Survival is still some way off. The wood may be small, and before the food runs out, workers begin the search for another piece of wood, and another, and they probably need to dig deeper to reach permanently damp soil. The central nest also needs to get further below the surface, away from the heat. There's plenty to do, and this gives you some reasons why we're not totally overrun by termites. It also explains, in part, why termites find our homes and try to recycle them as they would a fallen log or a dead tree in their prehistoric times. If you place plenty of monitors around your property, there's a very high probability that any established colonies will find at least one during their constant search for additional food sources. When they find a trap, and if you check them at least every 3 months, you'll notice they've arrived. Once you add an easy-to-harvest bait, they take this bait back to the nest and feed the nest, most of which are going through the molts. If the bait contains an insect growth regulator, that stops the molting process, the thousands of nymphs die, and decomposition gases engulf the whole nest, and the queen dies as well. Just in case they've already found a track into a building before you can spread the traps around, or in case a colony misses the traps on their way inside, you should check your home at least once, preferably twice a year. Essentially, you're looking for mud tunnels, and mud in joints and gaps, and looking and listening for hollowed out timbers. It's your home. Do it just in case. If you live in white ant territory, and 99% of us in Australia do, you should know your enemy and defend your home by checking monitors and checking your buildings forever.